Tune into this as well as many other awesome episodes only available on Patreon. Up to a certain point on the Monday, you could get in. It was no problem. I mean, it's not really a problem. It hit later on really hard, but the problem was getting back because the subway was flooded. The depth, it was a state of emergency. It was declared a state of emergency in the state, not just New York City.
I know. I dealt with this, and it's like they declare a state of emergency, no driving,
right.
And then they want you to show up for work because the area that your work is located in is essentially not that bad.
Right.
Well, what do you think? People all live 5 minutes away? They don't.
Right. Exactly. And so here we go with the first one. This is from, I'm not sure, it's ABC News, it says. So here we go.
Imagine what lies beneath in stations just like this one all over Lower Manhattan. What you're about to see is a collection of everything that Sandy brought to bear, and water is the least of it. Deep underground, the beating heart of Manhattan's transit system, an eerie labyrinth of epic proportions. Joe, none of this was here?
None of this was here.
All of this came with the water down the stairs?
Absolutely. This wall here is from down here.
Man, it's got to weigh 200 pounds. Sandy's 14-foot surge washed into Manhattan's South Ferry Station like a tidal wave, carrying thousands of pounds of debris.
So what do we...
And if anybody has ever dealt with flooding at any little aspect or huge aspect, it is terrible. I remember my parents had they hated our neighbors, and they built their property. We built our houses at the same time. They built theirs a little bit more elevated. So then when it rained, our parents' sun pump was always overworked. And our basement flooded frequently, but not like to that level. But, you know, it was not great. And just the absolute shit they had to go through when the basement flooded. Could you even imagine? And you're going to ask people to go to work when they take the subway.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing is what we were saying before we started recording. So let's say they could come in. Let's say they could get a hotel somewhere in the city, whatever it was. But the subways were flooded. These were people that were working there until 5. Everybody else is working there until 5 and 6. He's done. Stern is done. Robin's doing it from home. At this point, she's recovering from her cancer surgery, and she's convalescing. But he's going in. He's driven in with a private elevator, all that shit. And excuse me, security, limo service, everything. Doesn't even know where he fucking lives, and he's going to be driven there like some fucking king on a caravan. And everybody else is there till 5, maybe even 6, and this is when it hits. So you know, the whole idea of, you know, can I depend on you, which was what you're going to hear, is just insanely asshole. It's just insane assholery on his part.
It's so bad. And on top of that, you think about your family during times like this. Like, how is everybody's food supply okay? Is everybody okay with their medication?
You're
Does
also
everybody
worried
have what they need? Nobody would travel in this unless they're crazy. It's asking you to be in the movie Twister. You're asking people to storm chase at this point for a radio show.
Well, if you've got kids,
how stupid are they to
if
not
you've got
have...
kids... Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I don't mean to cut you off.
How stupid are they to not have at this point? You know how for COVID they had everybody online and you can do a show remotely? What have you been spending your money on, your millions of dollars on, that you don't have a system for in case something like this happens, that you can do a show remotely? That's on you, buddy.
Yeah, it is. And the other thing is, of course, it's even just something as simple as, first of all, worrying about looters. That's one thing, if you leave your house. And second of all, if you've got kids, they're going to panic, some of them, especially younger kids, and they've never been through something like this. They can get freaked out pretty fucking easily.
And who's going to watch the kids? Because it's a snow day, basically, a rain day, a storm day, whatever. They're not going to have childcare set up for that, because most working class people, during the day, you send your kids to school. You don't have a backup. There's not like some nanny that's going to appear out of nowhere.
And he lives by himself with his fucking beard. His kids are grown and they got their own places wherever in New York and West Coast or wherever the fuck they are at the time. Southeast Asia, I think Ashley was at the time. Not Ashley, Deborah. So either way, we'll continue a little more.
Talking like 50, 60 feet?
Yes. You're talking probably thousands, about 2,000, 3,000 feet of track that is completely submerged.
This is just one stop along 660 miles of subway track that carry more than 5.3 million commuters every day. At least 3 other stations have
Half
water
the fucking
up to
city.
their platforms. Many others have several feet of flooding.
We have 46 miles of track currently underwater right now.
Underwater, so unusable.
Yeah.
46 miles of track underwater, Fillmore.
Right. Yeah.
You have 46 miles of track underwater. By the way, too, water damage, the subway, electricity. You've got to be kidding me. Like, what do you want these people? You think a taxi cab's you're gonna hail a cab in this?
Well, you've seen what happens.
And a lot of
What
these
happens
people
to
don't
those?
have cars.
And if they have cars, they're driving through pools of water. If the engine doesn't fucking get flooded up.
And if you don't have SUVs or cars with like the appropriate tires or height, you're entrenched. You're going down.
Yep.
Remember, draining contaminated water, just the first step.
That's it. It's the other thing. That fucking idiot doesn't realize. It's sewer water. It's backed up. There's everything that was in the sewer is now by your feet. I was in Jakarta years and years ago. We went for some stupid reason. I didn't do enough research, and it was like the flooding season. So we went because I just said, let's go somewhere we've never been before. So we went to Jakarta, and almost every fucking day there was rain, there was flooding, and you see people walking around in flip-flops with this sewer water. I saw rats almost like they were in lounge chairs surveying the stuff like, when do we let's just give them another hour, then we'll start picking at the fucking, you know what I mean?
It was beautiful when I watched an architecture show about that specific place, and they built their house where when it rains it's like this tranquil, they had like these glass rooms, and like it was like this tranquil sound, and it was amazing. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder what everybody below is doing when these monsoons like basically occur.
Fuck's sake, it was unbelievable.
Weeks it will take to pump this out.
Yes.
And only then will you get down to where the tracks are and figure out what your problems are.
Correct.
Above ground cleanup is just as...
Oh my God. It's like a Campbell's soup of cars.
Like, and if anybody is in those, they're dead. If they weren't pulled out, that's the whole point. Like when these things happen and people are stuck under a tunnel, it's game over.
Yeah, what would you like for Panera? I'd like the prune soup with cars and dead bodies.
It looks like some demented punch.
Formidable. You see the color? That is fuel, that is oil, and that is transmission fluid. Each one is toxic, each one a hazardous material. This morning, 750,000 people are still without power. Public schools remain closed. Nearly 4,000 utility workers from all over the country are rushing to New York today to help turn the power back on.
But you have to be
For this fucking show.
to talk to
Hyperjerk.
yeah, to talk
Or
to Jeff
ask-
Drunk.